everybody's getting back together again. You know, everybody's got to get back into the groove. The 6 guys coming back together again and just doing it one more time.
We couldn't wait to get out there and show everybody what Gator Country was all about. So we just pulled the bus over while a couple guys went in and got us a key lime pie.
This whole thing is supposed to be. This is what these guys were meant to do. This thing's happening. We're doing it to play together and do it just one more time.
This is Gator Country!
Welcome to 4550 RPM, Remembering Past Musos, or Remembering Past Musicians if you like. I'm your host GK, and this is episode 10, and we're going to discuss the band Gator Country. Now for some background to this episode, I invite you to go back to episode 6, where I interviewed the former road manager of the original era Molly Hatchet band, Keith Jughead Johnson. In that episode, we discussed all things Molly Hatchet, and this time Keith is back to discuss Gator Country, the band that the original members of Molly Hatchet put together in 2005. Along with Keith, I am pleased to welcome to the show for the first time, Ron Schanne. Now, Ron played a role in the marketing side of Gator Country, but not only that, he also played a pivotal role in getting things moving for the band, particularly in the Northeast. As you'll hear in this discussion, Keith and Ron have put together the Gatekeeper series, which is a video series discussing all things Molly Hatchet. And now the guys are putting together a couple of documentaries concerning Gator Country, one that is out now and another that's upcoming. I'll tell you how to find out more about these videos and their channels shortly, but right now, let's get to the discussion. So this is Keith Johnson, Ron Schanne, and myself, in a discussion about Gator Country. Watch out for the photos and videos supplied by Ron. I believe a number of them not seen publicly before. Okay, here we go. Alrighty, so on the line with me I have Keith Jughead Johnson, and he has been on the show before, and a lot of you guys have requested he return. And also with us we've got Ron Schanne. We're going to be here to talk about, as I said in the introduction, Gator Country, but before we get there, we're going to talk a little about Molly Hatchet. Keith, thanks for coming back on the show.
You know what, Garth? This is probably one of my better days because I'm back on the show with you from Tasmania. You know, I mean, who else can have a show in Tasmania except you? And I'm just glad to be part of it. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm legitimate Tasmanian devil. Also with us we've got Ron Schanne. Welcome to the show, Ron. Your first time here. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, because folks probably know a bit about Keith. Tell us a bit about you, Ron.
Well, thank you very much, Garth. I basically got involved with Keith. We've known each other probably for a good 30, 40 years, if not even longer. And I came to Keith maybe about 5 years ago, and I said to him, you know, Keith, you really need to put all of your stories together in a book, because he was the original road manager for Molly Hatchet. He traveled the world with the band, and he has all of these stories. And Keith said, I don't want to do a book. And I said, well, how about some video? We'll put something up on YouTube, and we'll put it up on the official Molly Hatchet site. Myself, I do video production. I have a video production company. So I says, let's try that. So we did, and lo and behold, people love to hear the stories of Keith Jughead Johnson and his time with Molly Hatchet. And then, as an offshoot now, we get into a Gator Country. So, it's been a labor of love, I guess, to answer your question. And I'm having a ball, and even though that I've known a lot of the stories, I got to be honest with you, Garth. I learned some new things myself that I did not know about the original band and about their members through Keith. It's a great process.
It is. And, I haven't said this to you before. I haven't had the chance, but, your video production, leaves me to shame. I'm just a bit of a hack, I just whack these things together, but, and we will talk about this shortly, but your, the Gator Country video, I couldn't stop watching that. I just watched it from start to finish and I thought, oh boy, this guy's got it. So there's a bit of a promo for you, Ron. I just go to you, Keith.
Thank you.
Yeah, you deserve it, mate. Hey, Keith, we want to talk about, we're going to shift from Molly Hatchet to Gator Country, but I got a message, now I've got a lot of feedback on my YouTube channel about Molly Hatchet, Keith, and you and your stories, and there was a direct question for you, and I've asked you if it's okay if we could address it. I've just pulled it up because I want to read it out, and then I'm going to ask you to tackle it. Okay, so this is from the Stadium Shopper on Razorback, and it's aimed at you, Keith. It says, something I wanted to talk about is a show in Arkansas, January 15, 1980, Barton Coliseum, 3 days before my 18th birthday. 38 special opened, then Point Blank played. Then Hatchet. About the third song, someone threw a bottle that hit the drummer cymbal, glanced off and hit Bruce Crump. Danny Joe said not to throw anything, and promptly another bottle was thrown, landing and breaking at Danny's feet. Danny Joe throws down the mic, walks off the stage, the bandmates followed. Lights come up, and almost riot ensues. Bottles rain down on the stage. Things settle down, and a rather large roadie, I think it was, came out and said the show would go on, but a clean-up was needed, and if anyone else wants to throw a bottle, throw it at me, but have the balls to meet me out the back after the show. He says, I got up to buy a T-shirt. When I reached the concourse, I was met with riot cops everywhere. Does he remember this night? A friend told me his mother was on duty as the EMS person for the show, and that Danny Joe was so mad he threw a folding chair and hit his own girlfriend by accident, he said. Is this true?
What happened was, at the time we played the Barton Coliseum, all right, and it just so happens that we did an episode with the owner of R.A. Roth Lighting Company, Rob Roth, which is now part of the Gatekeeper series. And it just so happens that at the Barton Coliseum, basically it's an old cattle barn. And I mean, when you walk into the place, you smell, you know what, because it is a cattle barn. And you get all these people inside this venue, and there's signs on the outside that says no food or drink or inside, don't bring any glass in or whatever. Okay, well, 38 Special opens for Molly Hatchet. Okay, no instances, no problems whatsoever. There was another act, I can't remember the other act that was on there, but it just so happens that a person in the audience threw a bottle. The exact thing that happened was a person threw the bottle and it hit the lighting truss over Bruce's drum set, and it fell and hit Bruce in the head. Okay, and Bruce got really upset about it, and Danny made a please don't throw bottles on the stage or anything like that. We don't care if y'all have a good time, but and then it happens again, and it hits the lighting truss again, and it shatters, and it goes all over the stage. Well, at that time, the band, the guitar players, the roadies come out and grab their guitars. Everybody storms off stage, and we came back and played the concert, but it was just a terrible evening, having to do with, because I was a kid once, okay? I snuck alcohol into concerts when I first used to go to concerts when I was a kid, everybody got, I won't say everybody, but 90% of the people, do it. And it's just unfortunate that situation happened. And, we go more into detail on that episode of the Gatekeeper talking about with Rob Ross. And, but it was just, incidences like that do happen out on the road. And, at times I have to get up there, and just, let the people know, hey, if you want the concert to continue, then you guys got to act accordingly. And, sometimes they listen to what I say. Sometimes they don't. First of all, it wasn't Danny's girlfriend. It was a lady by the name of Patty Acker. She went by the name of Sunshine. She took care of the dressing room and also the band's tour bus, and was in charge of the catering and everything that happened in the dressing room area. Yes, Danny did get upset. He threw the chair up. It landed right on Sunshine's nose and broke her nose. And to this day, she still has that lump on her nose. And we talk about it every time that we have a conversation, which is probably once a month now. So
Keith, I've got a question. Garth was asking about the riot police. Were there actually riot police that were there for the concert?
Actually, what happened, Ron, was that after the band stormed off, people started getting more pissed off. Well, what happened was that the mounted police, they had mounted police around the Coliseum out in the parking lots. Okay. Well, they brought those guys inside to clear the Barton Coliseum, and then they let people back in one by one after checking to make sure they had no bottles. So the concert, needless to say, didn't get played till very late. That's basically the story.
So that's interesting. So there we go. And again, I'm going to say you've got a very good memory, Keith. You've got good memory.
It's all the vitamins I took back then.
Okay, so what we're going to do, what I'd like to talk about is, the transition from Molly Hatchet to Gator Country.
Basically how it happened in 1999, a benefit concert was done for Danny Joe Brown called Jammin' for DJB. And the band members, the original band members of Molly Hatchet came back together again, except Dwayne Rowland, and which we'll talk about in another time. And they did this benefit concert. They played for free. I mean, people from Rosington Collins were there. People, from Blackfoot were there. Just different people in the music industry were at this benefit concert. And they raised money to help out with Danny Joe Brown's medical expenses, because at the time he was having problems with his diabetes and with other health issues. And after that, in 2002 or 2003, we did a benefit concert for Mr. Bruce Crump, the former drummer of Molly Hatchet. And once again, people from all around the Virginia area came out. Members of Molly Hatchet flew in to do this benefit for Bruce. And several years later, actually in 2004, I get a call from a gentleman by the name of Everett Leibold. Everett was the front of house person who mixed the front console out in front of the house for the people to hear through the audio system. He worked for a company called Audio Analyst, and he also worked for Journey. And Everett calls me because Jimmy Farrar and Everett still were friends. And Jimmy called Everett, said, we're trying to put the band back together again. We'd like for you, Everett, to manage the band. And Everett said, my plate's too full. And he said, you should go back where, to a person that really cares about the band, that at this point in his life is able to handle the situation. So I got a call from Everett saying that, they want to put the band back together again. I told Everett he was out of his mind. Do you know the uphill battle that we're going to have? Because the name Molly Hatchet, the moniker itself, had been sold, and the person that bought it still has it today. I don't want to mention any names or anything like that, but so I got everybody together and basically told the guys that this is not a party anymore. This is a business. If we can't handle it like a business, count me out. I said, we're here to do, one thing. That's for you guys to play and get back on the stage again. Another thing is to make money and to make this a successful business. And, that's how it progressed. And from there, we did our first show in Universal Studios on the 12th of March in 2005.
Keith, let's back it up just a little bit, okay? Let's tell Garth about the first sitting with the original band, because the band that Gator Country became was not the original band. There was one other member that was going to be with the band, and it's a very interesting story about how he decided not to become part of Gator Country. Why don't you share that with Garth?
All right, great. Thanks, Ron, for bringing that to my attention. In November, December, band members got together. I flew them in to St. Augustine, Florida. Everybody agreed. I'm talking about each original band member. You got Dave Lubeck, you got Steve Holland, you got Dwayne Rowland, you got Jimmy Farrar, you got Bruce Crump, you got Riff West, okay? You've got these 6 original band members from Molly Hatchet. Well, it just so happens that we were going to do a promo shoot in Atlanta, Georgia at a venue called the Tabernacle, which is an old church up there that they do concerts at now. And we flew up there. All the band members and myself were at the Atlanta airport in Hartsfield, and we were waiting for Dave Lubeck to come in, fly in, and Dave did not fly in on the flight that he was supposed to be on. I called him multiple times. Finally, I had a call back from Dave, so stating that he was not going to be part of the Gator Country organization. Dave wanted more money. He also wanted to be more in charge of what was going on. And when we first went into this project, it was a seven member organization. The band members and myself were equally involved in this. And because I ended up spending quite a bit of money in order for this to happen from 2004 until 2009, 2010, when it stopped. And unfortunately, with Dave not being there, we went ahead and did the photo shoot. We left a space for an individual to be superimposed into that shot. And it just so happens that Bruce Crump knew a gentleman by the name of Lenny Deasy, who is and was an excellent guitarist back then. And Lenny agreed to be part of the organization. And at that time, after our photo shoot, we sent Lenny a copy of what the photo would have looked like. So he stood on a building, and the photographer did a silhouette of Lenny and superimposed it right onto the promo picture, which was incredible. You couldn't even tell it, Garth. And so after that, I flew everybody into Orlando because that's where the rehearsal hall was, and Dwayne lived there, Riff lived there, and it was just easier to get to besides Jacksonville, Florida. And or you fly into Jacksonville, come down to St. Augustine. So I just had everybody come came to Orlando to do the rehearsals, and it worked out great. Lenny fit in, and to this day, Lenny is and was a key part of the Gator Country organization.
At what point after this, Ron, what was your involvement? It's sort of around this time, isn't it? When things get rolling?
It was my involvement, kind of was, it was a twofold thing. After I found out that the band was getting back together again, and Keith was going to manage it, I was speaking with Dwayne Rowland, who was a very good friend of mine, and really from the original band. Him and I had a personal relationship for many, many, many years. And when we found out that the original band was getting back together again, I believe, Keith, that you and we spoke a little bit about maybe doing some marketing. I have marketing and promotion, because I used to work for a record company as a promotion guy. So I kind of knew the backstory of how to move, a band and how to promote a band. And so Keith and Dwayne and the band talked about bringing me on as basically doing marketing for the band. And then also we had an agency to book concerts down into the South, and that was called Phantasma Agency. But up north, where I'm from, they really weren't that strong. So I was doing some selling of the shows. So as I said, it was kind of a twofold thing. I did marketing, and then I also sold the shows for the band up north here. And then on the website, because again, it's funny because back in those days, in that 2005, 2006, the internet was still being developed. It was not the way that it is today. And a lot of things were, it was trial and error. And we would put things out. We would put videos out of the band, under the website that Keith got. And it was quite interesting. We had a good time, but it was all trial and error, and fortunately it did work.
Okay, so one of the things that I really enjoyed recently was watching the video that you guys did, Gator Country, the sort of mini documentary, The Journey. And so I know this is going to sound a little bit corny, Ron, but where did you get the footage from? Were you intentionally shooting with something future in mind, or like a film clip in mind? Why were you? Because you got a lot of good footage there. Why were you filming?
It's so funny because when I shot that, and basically that really was that 3-day journey. Hence that's why it's called The Journey. It was the second show that the band performed in Key West, and it was the first time that they were actually going to be out and playing, for themselves, or now they did open for Edgar Winter, but it was really interesting because I flew down to Orlando to where they were doing their rehearsals, and I wanted to capture. I'm always looking for that, and I guess maybe because it's the photography side of me and the video side of me, I wanted to get different shots, but I wanted to document, what was all going on during those times. Did I have anything in mind? Absolutely not. Back then, I just wanted to have an archival thing. One thing, Garth, that I find incredibly fascinating, and this is maybe Keith can kind of chime into this and we can go back to the story, is when I was out with the band, I was always taking pictures, and I've got, a lot of pictures and they're not the standard, the pose shots and all that type of stuff. These are like, just, very, off the cuff things, real life type of photos of this band. Oddly enough, when we talk about Gator or the Gatekeeper series, and I'll go back to Keith and say, you're talking about this story. You got to have something, some photography. You've got to have a picture. Do you know, Garth, that he's traveled the world? He's very limited on photos. Because he was in the middle of the hurricane, he never took photos. He just never did. So when he sees the stuff that I'll bring back, sometimes he's amazed at what he's, because he's seeing it from a different perspective, In answer to your question, I wanted to document, but I did not really know what I wanted to do with it. And it was so funny because I really forgot about the footage. And then I started to look at it, because I am the, editor and the director, I guess, for the new documentary. So I'm starting to put different things together and trying to get a timeline together and stuff. And all of a sudden I remembered this footage, and it's like, this would be a great little sub piece for the whole thing, which kind of shows to the audience, and to Molly Hatchet fans and Gator Country fans, what all kind of goes into the different steps.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's one of those things you look back, like I'm saying it now, you look back, you go, wow, I'm just glad somebody did it. It's just one of those things, isn't it? Now, I mean, common now, we're all walking around with cameras in our pockets, in our phones, and it's everywhere, everywhere you go, people are taking photos of anything and everything. But even in 2005, the quality of phone cameras and that wasn't what it is today. So it just wasn't as prevalent. So I'm just glad to see you did it. And I'll put a link in the description portion here. But when you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see on the first page down the bottom there a link to the Gatekeeper YouTube channel. It's just there. So you click on that and you can subscribe and you can see these Gatekeeper series and that Ron.
The original era recording members of Molly Hatchet. They're back, playing great legendary rock. This is Gator Country. Gator Country is the original era recording members of Molly Hatchet, Bruce Crump, Steve Holland, Jimmy Farrar, Rip West, Lenny Dissy, and formerly of UFO, Paul Chapman, playing the songs they wrote and recorded. Gator Country is live in concert. There's a gator in the bush, Lord, he's calling my name. Yep. This is Gator Country. I'll never let the two-time trouble stop that me, baby. Drink get the best of me. Outlaws on the loose, running, rock the blues, yeah. I'm a bounty hunter, gonna too long. Well, it's a bloody reunion. Tearing up the town, smoking on the side of the night. Do a beat, do a beat, do a beat, again. Now don't you just wanna get on up, babe? Hear this rockin' sound. Playing the greatest southern rock of all time, Gator Country.
Well, g'day. I hope you're enjoying this discussion with Keith and Ron. If you're looking for more from them, you can find them on YouTube by searching for The Gatekeeper Original Era Molly Hatchet. The Gatekeeper Original Era Molly Hatchet. Or you can just look at my channel, and the link to their channel is right there at the bottom of the first page. If you look at that image I'm showing now, you can see a link direct to their page, so you can get on there, subscribe, and keep up with everything that both Keith and Ron are doing. It's if you're interested in Molly Hatchet, let me say this: if you're interested in Molly Hatchet and some fantastic stories about touring and the band from that era, and really just the music industry in general and what life was like on the road, you've really got to get into that series. So I really do strongly urge you to get over there and get onto the Gatekeeper channel there. Also, for more on all things Molly Hatchet, you can find Keith's group on Facebook. Just go to Facebook and search for the original Molly Hatchet group. The original Molly Hatchet group. I'll put some links in the description section below. Sorry about the chewing in the background, I think that's the dog. helping herself to a couple of dog biscuits there. Okay, now, don't forget to hit like and subscribe here on Philosopher Rock if you haven't already. I don't make any money here, I do it for the love of it. So if you're also into keeping the memory of some of these past musicians alive, add your voice to mine and hit like and comment. The Philosopher Rock channel is the host channel for 4550 RPM, Remembering Past Musos or Remembering Past Musicians. So please like, subscribe and comment. Okay, cheers, thanks for that. And now let's get back to the interview with Keith and Ron. That for Gator Country, who designed that logo? Was that your work? You know
No, that was not mine. Actually, that was Keith, and that's a great question. Keith and Toby Williams. He had a company, a T-shirt company, and I'm talking about Keith and Toby back in the day, and they wanted to come up. So that was actually Toby's and Keith's creation. And I do have a rough drawing of it, pencil sketch when it was just, starting. So it's a good question, that you may want to ask him. No, I had nothing to do with that, and going back into selling the shows, because Keith sold the shows, but it was basically, Phantasma that did it for him down south, and he was kind of more involved in, with the band and whatnot, and I was more on the marketing and selling the bands up here of how to sell a band that was the original members, but now has to go out with a different name, the challenges, because it was a challenge. And again, I'll just share one little thing with you. We did I booked a show up here, which was called the Harley Rendezvous. And, I would pitch them the show, pitch them the price and whatnot. They had gotten back to me. And again, this was back, before cell phones really and texts and stuff. So everything was done through emails. Oddly enough, the year previous, they had Molly Hatchet, and they had such a bad taste in their mouth because this was my understanding of the story that the promoter, the owner of this Harley Rendezvous was telling me, is that when Bobby's bus pulled on the site and saw how many people were there, they upped their price to go on stage, or they weren't going to play. And they had such a bad taste in their mouth. So I'll
tell you that, yeah. If you would just finish that, Ron, I'll tell you what, you got up to the point where you said they had a bad taste in their mouth because they had tried to up the price, and you cut out roughly there.
They upped their price, and there was they had such a bad taste in their mouth. So now here I am coming in and trying to sell a band that was the original members of Molly Hatchet, but under Gator Country, and we had to literally jump through a lot of hoops. Because the first thing that we had to tell them is that, we are not that band. We are what I like to call the good guys. And, we're here to play. Long story short, they were watching us. We had to make sure that our P's and Q's were all in line. And after the end of the show, they were very pleased and very proud to have us come in and play. That happened more times than not. And, as I say, we had the uphill battle because of the fact that we had to prove ourselves. And it's really kind of a shame if you think about it, because we had the original band. So, these guys were the guys that cut the songs, that wrote the material. But we were still having to prove ourselves to who we were. But with that said, once the band took the stage and the crowds that were there, they got into the spirit that these were the original members, and that magic was there.
Yeah, good. Hey, so Keith, today, earlier this morning, hang on, yeah, for me it's morning, last night for you guys, you were telling a story about the backdrop with the original album cover. Could you share that with us?
Yes, we were playing at Universal Studios, our inaugural concert, and it just so happens that a gentleman by the name of Ray Steins works for Universal Studios now. Ray took over my position as road manager after I left in 1987, and Ray did a really fantastic job as being the road manager. I think he was out for like 2.5, almost 3 years. And that was during a transition time back in 89 into 90 of what the band was going to do, if the band was going to do anything. But it just so happens that with Ray being there at Universal Studios, and he was in charge of the music for Universal Studios and bringing acts in, that he called his art department and had them make the original backdrop, Molly Hatchet album cover. So when a certain part of the show happened, a song came on, the backdrop unveiled itself, and there was the larger than life original Molly Hatchet album cover. Since we had written, the band had written the music, okay, and gotten the approval from their management at that time, who owned the rights to that music at that time, that we were able to use the album cover for that particular concert. We didn't use it again. We came up with our own logo.
Yeah, we just talked about that. Yeah.
Which was a fantastic logo that myself and Toby Williams came up with, and with the gator, coming out of the swamp. It just it basically was telling the story about Gator Country, where and who we came from. We basically came out of the swamp being originally Molly Hatchet back to Gator Country, the original era members of Molly Hatchet.
Yeah, I saw some of those photos today, and I guess I'm going to be able to share that on the video here.
Yes.
Yeah, good, because I want people to see that. So there's a couple of great pictures.
Yeah,
there.
what I'll do is, Gareth, I'll send you some I'll send you some of the old promotional things that I have, because I still have all those, and I'll just do those in clips and stuff, and so you've got that as well.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So that was one thing that I definitely wanted to cover, because I hadn't heard that story before. But so how many tours did Gator Country do? And can you talk us through that live album? How did that, so we sort of started at the start, but what came next? Was it touring, recording?
Actually, what came next, Garth, is that we did the first show in Universal Studio. We did the second show in September at in Key West, when we opened for Edgar Winters. And then the third show that we did was at a barbecue festival that St. Petersburg, Florida has every year, called the Rib Fest. And I got in touch with a gentleman through Phantasma Productions, who was the booking agency, supposedly, for Gator Country. And Tom and I had a good relationship. In fact, we ended up playing out of the 4 to 5 years that we were Gator Country, we played every Rib Fest except one. The first one we did, we opened for, I believe it was Marshall Tucker. And then the second one we did was we opened for Dickie Betts of the Allman Brothers. And those two concerts, the first concert we did, there were 30 100,000 people there at the concert that we did. And, that right there was probably one of the largest shows that Gator Country ever played, was at that barbecue festival, because people and barbecue cookers, people that cook barbecue, came from all over the Southeast to go to St. Petersburg to this rib fest. And, there were people there from all over the United States and even from out of the country that came to that concert. And, we debuted our Gator Country shirts and, the band, and, it was just we got a excellent reception, because once we got up there and started playing, everybody knew exactly who it was.
Right. Yeah. So forgive my ignorance, and I don't want to start another war, but I'm from way down in the deep south in Tasmania, and I do understand that there's a north and a south divide somewhat in the United States. This is just from my point of view, so please, listeners, don't attack me about this one. But Ron, how did it go putting them on in the north, taking this Wild Southern Boys to shows in the north? Does that mean anything, or is it just because I'm not an American, I'm not understanding how there might have been differences?
No, I guess fortunately or unfortunately, that is still true today. There is a north and a south. It's funny because even Keith and I, because Keith is in Jacksonville, I'm in New York State, and when we have a meeting of the mind, sometimes it's the New York attitude and the gentlemanly Southern that Mr. Johnson seems to want to put in, and it gets very interesting from time to time. So yeah, there is, but it's all in good fun, and it's all for the betterment of the thing. But yeah, to answer your question, Garth, to sell the band up north, I had the luxury of, even though I didn't have the name, I had the players, and there was no denying of who they were. Here, I had the guys, but we did have our challenges to sell the band, because there was the Molly Hatchet still out there, and we never wanted to step on their toes. There was room for really everybody to make money and to, present their portion of what they wanted. But we did have an uphill battle, because the fact is that we had to go out as Gator Country, the original era members of Molly Hatchet. But we had to do it in a way when we marketed, when we sold the shows, when I sold the shows. The promoters could only, had to have the name Gator Country much bigger than what it said for the original era members of Molly Hatchet. We couldn't use in the advertising the actual live tracks that, from the albums, because that was all copyrighted and it was already all sold. So we had the live stuff, and so that was really what we had to use. People don't understand, or they don't realize, they don't say understand, they don't realize, they figure, well, these guys did the songs, they should be able to use those songs. No, there's a lot of legalities. There's songwriters, there's royalties, there's copyright. So you just can't go out and say, well, even though that they did it, they should be able to perform it. That doesn't happen. And to get the name out, and we had to do it in different ways, very creative ways, to make people aware of who these, guys really were. So yeah, and those were the challenges, but up north, people were still hungry for the original band. And if we could show them and get past that, stigma of the name, it was all good. And once people saw the band, the magic was there.
When Molly Hatchet was out, when we were out as Molly Hatchet back when we first started in 1978, okay, we had an excellent draw from the Northeast. Okay, Molly Hatchet would go up. I mean, we would play Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey. We played Madison Square Garden. We'd sell Madison Square Garden out. And in Buffalo, the War Memorial Auditorium, I think it is, it was. And we sell it out. okay, because the following of Southern music up in the Northeast was incredible. So, which made it easier for us at the time to sell the product up in the Northeast. Okay. Going back to what Ron was just talking about, before we went out on the road, I went to Nashville, Tennessee. I met with a gentleman by the name of John Biter, and he was a entertainment attorney. He told me the do's and don'ts, what I could do, what I couldn't do as far as advertising. Gator Country, 100%. Molly Hatchet, only 30%. We could not say that we were Molly Hatchet. We could say we're the original era recording members of Molly Hatchet. Okay. It's like what's going on today with the Guess Who. Pardon the expression, it's a sticky wicket, out there. And if you don't, mind your P's and Q's, then you're going to have a legal problem. And that's what we had to do, because every time we turned around, there was always somebody trying to do something to stop us. And, we just kept pushing and pushing,
I like your use of the sticky wicket there. I'm pretty sure that was an Aussie one, got to do with cricket. And, I do need to be forgiven for being a dumb old boy from Tasmania, because I didn't want to start a north-south thing, but I just had to ask the question, because from my angle, I'm thinking, look, from here, and I know you asked me this today, but from my angle, the music I was into, and me and my friends and the band I was in, Molly Hatchet and that sort of sound, Thin Lizzy, Molly Hatchet, Lynyrd Skynyrd, that was what we listened to, that with a few other bands, but that sound, and I think I've told you before, and I did use this image in my first video. My bandmate has a full Molly Hatchet, the Flirting with Disaster, tattooed on his back. So it was really important to me and my gang, and some of the people that we knew, but as far as the wider, let's just say people who weren't really into Southern rock, I'm just not sure about the penetration. I do know, things like, of course, AC/DC were and still are pretty big here, and Thin Lizzy back in the day, Bad Company back in the day, but they've all faded off. Lynyrd Skynyrd definitely. I was watching a football game just the other night, rugby league, and in the ground they start playing Sweet Home Alabama as one of their, in between plays. And I thought, I wonder if the crowd realised what they're listening to. It was really good, and that was just last weekend. So
basically, Garth, music transcends everywhere. It's universal.
Absolutely, it really is. I think that's
if it's good music, it transcends, and there's no time boundaries. It could be endless, But I do have a question to ask, and I'm very curious, because as I don't know if people are aware, this is such a fascinating conversation, because I'm in Buffalo, New York. Keith is in Jacksonville. You are on an island, which is south of Australia, called Tasmania, and we're able to talk about, but we all have one common goal and one common bond, which is this type of music. But my question that I have is, you had said AC/DC. Everybody knows AC/DC. Then there's been so many other bands from the 80s, like In Excess and Crowded House. And even if you go back to the 60s with the Easy Beats, how does all of that genre of music get wrapped into Southern rock? Or is it because you guys didn't have Southern rock that this type of music was?
We sort of mentioned it before. I think where it might come from, and this is just my opinion, so country rock and country music is as big here as it is there, I'm guessing. We have a lot of country music fans and country rock. So I don't think it's a big step to go from, because we've had our country rock bands here. I'm going to mention one of the best Australian bands called Stars. And they've just sort of reformed, and they're still going. They've had an album put out recently. And the Dingoes, who I think they might have even penetrated somewhat into the American market with their song Way Out West. And so country rock is something that's here. It's not a big step to go from that to the heavier sounding southern country rock, sort of southern rock of the bands I've mentioned, 38 Special, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Molly Hatchet, etc. And it's funny, Ron, you say that we are in all different, the three of us are in different parts of the world, but there's that one thing, and here it is, and we're still talking about it. So I'm hoping, and the reason I'm doing this, I'm hoping that, younger generations will catch on to this and go, well, what are these old fellas talking about? And go and dig it out, because I often listen to Molly Hatchet, and I really give Flirting with Disaster album. I just flogged that to death. And I've never got bored of it. I just, it's just one of those albums you go, yeah, okay, I could play that again, but, I'll probably annoy my friends. So to answer your question, I don't think it's a big jump from those Australian country rock bands to a bit of heavier sound of the American Southern rock stuff. Moving on, the live album, were you involved in that, Keith, the Gator Country live album?
Yeah, I was there from the start to the finish, even with the producing and of the album. Even though I'm not mentioned as co-producer on the album, I was there and gave my 50 cents. Sorry, this guy here doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. Okay, so when I heard something that it didn't sound right, I said, that doesn't sound right, or you need to bring up the guitars a little bit because the drums or the bass are overriding a little bit, or, somebody else's guitar is, out in front of somebody else's guitar that's doing a lead. I would say, but most all in all, the guys, and it just so happens that when we did the live CD, it was recorded live in Ohio. And this was after Dwayne had passed. And before Dwayne had passed, we did the song "Oh Atlanta" that was by Michael Rouse. Sorry, and we went down to a recording studio in Orlando that Pat Armstrong, the band's original manager, owned. And he let us come in there for free and do the single "Oh Atlanta," and it just turned out unbelievable. That cut, and it just and I think it was a great single because it was sent out that way, and I use it a lot even today. I used it as far as I have Loud and Proud Fridays, and I used it today on my Loud and Proud Friday. So it's a great song. After the passing of Dwayne in June of 2006, it hit us all hard. We didn't know if we should go on. We didn't know what we should do, and we even talked to Dwayne's family members, and they said that if it was Dwayne, he would want us to continue in what we were doing. So we decided to have a rehearsal, to have people come in and do auditions, and a couple people came in from the Orlando area that we knew. Some musicians down there. But a guy walks in, and who we all knew. He was from Cape Canaveral area, and his name's Paul Chapman. And Paul used to be with a band called UFO. And back during the late 70s and 80s, we toured with UFO over in Europe and also in the United States. So Paul came in, got up on stage, plugs in, and he starts playing Beating the Odds right away. I mean, note for note for note for note. Everybody jumps on stage, finishes the song. All of a sudden, we got our sixth member back, and we're out with Paul Chapman. And we just so happened that after Paul joined the organization in 2006, we toured for another 3.5, 4 years. And at one of the concerts we did up in Ohio, we recorded live, and that's where we did the Gator Country live. I'm sorry I don't have a CD right in front of me, but we recorded Gator Country live, and the album did real good. People loved it. They loved the music. They loved all the old Molly Hatchet hit songs that these guys wrote, produced, and sold. And with that being said, Ron and I just, like you said, several years ago, we hooked back up and we decided to do these episodes and call the Gatekeeper. And now we're doing the new episodes having to do with Gator Country, and they're more or less documentaries. And we've got one that we released. And Ron, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the other one?
Well, I think before we do that, we would have to, and I want to reset the table just a little bit from what Keith was talking about with Wayne's passing, the brain, and the addition to Paul. Yeah. We're back out touring again, and then all of a sudden, another gut punch happens where Jimmy suffers a stroke. And though it's a mild stroke, but a stroke nonetheless. But he wants to play, so he goes into rehab. The family and the band and all the well-wishers for everybody to see if he's well enough, if wants to come back on the road. And he does. And even though he was a tad bit slower than previous, his heart was still there. And it was really almost cathartic to see him do this, given the circumstance. And, Garth, the layers, as I had said early on, the layers of things that happened to this band, is just remarkable. But they were able to overcome the adversity, and with one common goal, which was to play. I mean, we have a passing of an original band member. Bruce is a cancer survivor. Okay. Jimmy had a stroke. Steve, who had his own medical challenges. Okay. But when they got on stage for 80 minutes, life was good. The universe smiled. And that's really what we want to show in the upcoming documentary one last time, because that's really what it was. And it's apropos. Keith kind of came up with the title because it was really kind of a working title, but it kind of stuck. The band just wanted to play one more time. And that's really where, we want to show the band. We want to show these 6 individual members who, unfortunately, are not with us anymore.
No, they've all passed.
That, if you think about it, is almost unbelievable that these guys they will never be the original era members of Molly Hatchet ever again, because these guys are all gone. So Keith and I basically it's a labor of love to be able to show these guys and to show people that want to know about, the trials and tribulations and the heartbreak, but ultimately to transcend the music that they were known for.
The story has to be told about the original era recording members of Molly Hatchet and the original era recording members of Gator Country. The story has to be told, and has to be told again and again and again for new generations of people.
That's exactly why we're all here. Before I let you go, Ron, can you give us any hints about what's coming up in the new One More Time? Is there any scoop you can give me?
We are right now in the process of putting together. The timeline's been already figured out. Actually, Keith's portions have been all done. We met up in Myrtle Beach, where we did a lot of filming for him, And then he came to Buffalo, where in my studio where we did more filming. And now what we're doing is we're doing the centerpieces where we're talking to some of the people that were involved in the process, such as the Everett Lightbolt, okay, Ray Steins. We're also in conversations even with some of the children of the surviving members, okay, to kind of get their feeling on, what it was like to have Dad be a rock star, and be out there and then play with these things. And a lot of very interesting stories, very compelling, very heartfelt, stories. Cause that's really, this is not a this is not a hit piece, and this is not a got you type of thing. This is reality and it's life. And, as they say, there was hard times, there were good times, and we hopefully are able to bring those all together. So that's really what I'm working on right now. And hopefully within the next couple of months, it'll be ready to be put out. We don't want to put it out ahead of time. It's funny. I'll share this with you. When we put out the mini documentary, the journey, right away people have said, well, this is disjointed. You're not talking about the beginning. How did this band come back together again? What happened before, and now the new one will do that. But I leave you with this, Garth, as I had told, my partner, Keith. I says, for all those people that say that, okay, my only comment is that there was a little movie that came out, back in the 70s that started their movie in episode 5. That little movie was Star Wars.
Yes, good. I like it. All right, thanks very much, Ron. Keith, can I get last words from you?
Yeah, all I'm going to say, Garth, is I appreciate you touching base with myself and Ron so we can do this thing for you. And I find it kind of ironic, and I just want to bring this up real quick, okay? Steve Holland, which is one of the original band members, he and Dave Lubeck started Molly Hatchet, okay? It just so happens that Steve Holland was the last man standing of this organization. It just I thought about that this morning at 4:00 while I was preparing for this show.
Interesting.
It was incredible. I want to thank you once again. I want to thank Australia. I want to thank Tasmania one more time.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Anytime you want to have us, over with you guys again, give us a shout. And, all I can say is from Studio 1J in beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, stand by for the next episode of The Gatekeeper.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Keith. Thank you, Ron. I was going to say, I'll finish by saying I'm looking forward to the next documentary, but maybe after that's released and we get see how it goes and get some feedback, might get you guys back on. So maybe in a couple of months' time, have you both back on?
Thank you.
Have a three-peat.
Yeah, my honor. Thank you.
Thank you, and I really appreciate both of giving your time. You both got the insight that I haven't got a clue about, so I've really enjoyed this, and I think I'm going to enjoy putting it together and getting it out there and letting others enjoy it. So thanks very much, and I'll just say good evening and hooroo from Tasmania.
Good morning from Studio 1J.
Thank you, Garth.
It's a title song off the first album I ever did with Molly Hatchet, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. This thing called Beat the Odds. asked me and asked me if I had a name. She told me she was interested to see if I could play the game. She said her name was Victory. She didn't want to know the rules. That's just the way that I wanted to play in a game designed for fools. We'll beat the odds, beat the odds, beat the odds again. We will gamble with our souls, we will play in the plan. We will beat the odds again. Still a day, the victory is so